Last but not least, I would turn to Sharif. Thank you for being with us today to share with us your own story. You faced extradition to Egypt while on a visit to Dubai in November 22 in retaliation for a YouTube video that you posted. In the video, you called for a peaceful protest during the visit of the US President to Egypt, who was attending the 7th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Can you share with us what happened the day of the arrest as well as its aftermath?
Thank you. Thank you, Norway, for sponsoring. Thank you for all the organizers, panel members, special rapporteur, attendees. What happened to me in Dubai sums up the broken systems of both Interpol and AIMC. My arrest happened without presenting a warrant. Wasn't even told that I was under arrest. I was taken into an unmarked car with 2 plainclothes cops. No names or badges, no reason for my kidnap. I was taken into the Interpol office at the Dubai police headquarters, where I saw 3 officers, including the 2 that arrested me, who met with a 3rd one, struggling for a couple of hours to book me in based on a fraud red notice by the Interpol they created while I was there. 2 days later, after not allowed to contact my family, nor a lawyer, I was brought into a video conference with the chief Interpol prosecutor, who told me that there is a red notice on me by the Interpol. I denied the fact, stating that I entered Netherlands on the way to Dubai. He then responded that, miraculously, it was submitted a day after I entered Dubai. What a joke. 3 weeks later, UAE denied all what happened about the Interpol, and all of a sudden it turned to an AIMC case, regardless of what the prosecutor told me in my face. Here's the main problem. 2 international police bodies led by Arabs who are hand-selected by dictators to occupy the job. Raisi is a criminal with record of torture who should be named a terrorist. But he is Ben Zayed's hand-selected officer for the job. He is now the president of the Interpol. Shame on the Interpol. I entered UAE 2014, 2015 for 8 months residing in Dubai, 2016, 2019, 2020 without a problem. Raisi came to power 2021. I entered Dubai for the first time in 2 years in 2022, and voila. Coincidence, right? No one should think this way. It's a system that is being abused and broken by the Arabs. On the other hand, we have AIMC, an organization that has no restrictions, no ethics, and no respect to laws, just like the 20 states it represents. After my voice from jail got way louder than they imagined, Interpol had to hide away, refraining from anything that had to deal with my case, denying anything involves my arrest and the fake warrant. It was the AIMC that stepped in to say, oh, this was our warrant. That was the cover-up from AIMC to Interpol. That's why I call them both systems are broken under Arabic leaders. Still till today, I challenge the state of the United Arab Emirates to release my video recording with the persecutor, but they will never, ever be ready for that challenge. There is no one supervising those 2 police organizations, nor any regulations to have them held responsible to their actions. They are run by police officers whom their job is to get the job done for the royal appointees. And when we talk about counterterrorism involving all this, let me remind you of some beautiful facts. On July 15, 2008, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse had a great announcement to the American public. Quote, Nelson Mandela will be removed from the terror watch list. End of quote. That was 9 years after Mandela was done with his only presidential term. We all know the history of Mandela and how the brutal regime of apartheid Pretoria dealt with him. What is the definition of terrorism? We don't know really. I doubt that anybody in this room actually know the actual specific definition of terrorism. Is forming an armed militia outside the rule of law considered terrorism? I have a few tales for you to illustrate. Ever heard of the Arabian Tribes Union in Egypt, also known as the Militias of Sinai? It's an armed militia which al-Sisi, the president of Egypt, formed outside the rule of Egyptian law. This militia is led by a convicted felon who kidnapped and tortured 51 Egyptian policemen back in 2008. This incident was very famous. They actually made a movie about it. The militia leader was pardoned by former President Mubarak right after Sisi was appointed to become the chief of military intelligence back in 2010. Military intelligence is the main police body of taking care of Sinai. It's not the police, it's not the feds over there. No, it's the Egyptian intelligence. The leader of this armed militia has a name. It's Organi. Remember this name. Now, the largest businessman in Egypt and the owner of Organi Group, one of his sub-entities is BMW Egypt. Egypt doesn't recognize Organi as a terrorist. Egypt actually supports Organi to be richer and more powerful. In addition to Organi militia, we have another famous felon thug who was pardoned by el-Sisi. His name is Nakhnouch, a convicted felon with a life sentence. This time, he was given the biggest armed security company in Egypt, Falcon. It is now led by a convicted thug and has all the power to hire his street boys to carry guns and wear a uniform. 2 militias were formed in Egypt, the country of over 100 million residents. Both militias are packed with thugs led by criminals with loyalty to the Godfather, Sisi. Did the United States ever question this formation? Never. How about Europe? Did they refrain from dealing with such a regime? Not even close. Egypt is a member of the advisory board of the United Nations Counterterrorism Center, the UNCCT, which is a part of the UN Office of Counterterrorism, the UNOCT. The terrorism grooming state of Egypt is a founding member of the Global Counterterrorism Forum, the GCTF. That is enough to show people with brains how rigged the system actually is. Time has proven that our Western policies directed at countries with human rights violations never work nor will ever do. 2 quotes in the past month caught my attention, and many others with a history of growing up and many others with a history of growing up in repressive states. The first, former presidential nominee John Kerry at the WEF, beginning of October. If people only go to one source, quote, if people only go to one source and the source they go to is sick and has an agenda, and they are putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to be able to just, hammer it out of existence, end of quote. That's a presidential nominee. He's looking at our freedom of expression, freedom of speech, just because he doesn't like the narrative. The second was by another former presidential nominee, Hillary Clinton, on CNN, quote, platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok or whatever they are, if they don't moderate or monitor the content, we lose total control. And it's not social or psychological effects, it's real harm. End of quote. Another presidential nominee going after First Amendment. Sick. Those are 2 red flags in the direction of oppression, even in free nations. Another red flag coming from France, which is their new law, Apologie de terrorisme, which criminalizes any actions that may be considered terrorism, like supporting a free Palestine from colonization. The mirage of pressuring dictatorships to change their policies is no longer accepted by human rights activists. We are now aware of the American and European government-sponsored lies about Middle East dictatorships. At the end of the day, it will all go down to geopolitical or geostrategic interests in the region. I hope no one was surprised to see an Emirati, a Saudi, in addition to an Egyptian here speaking about human rights violations in our countries of birth. It's not a coincidence that we represent the strongest allies of the United States in the Middle East. The same three countries are both armed and politically supported by Western governments. Their violations were never addressed in a serious manner because our Western governments never really cared about those violations. Those exact three countries are running as supply lines to the genocide and the ethnic cleansing crimes taking place in Gaza as we're speaking right now. I see it funny when an American or a European politician speaks to the media stating that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, while arming and grooming almost a couple of dozens of dictators to ensure the protection of such an entity. If we are seeking a serious change, it must happen in the democratic countries. Laws and regulations must restrict our governments from doing what they're doing today. Countries with geopolitical or geostrategic interests should be given a time frame to change their violations, or we put embargoes on them, cut strategic ties, and adjust our strategies based on the inability to tolerate the wrongdoings before the law. If we don't see changes happening in the direction of restricting democratic governments from engaging with non-democratic ones, we won't see any change at all. Thank you.